Welcome back here with Goldberg. Today I wanted to talk about internet culture in general and how I think a lot of it is just an excuse for people to establish these crude dichotomies and caricatures of others without necessarily extracting value for themselves. So let's just begin with the whole self-improvement meme. And you'll hear people like JRE and of course Dr. Lobster, both of whom are fantastic guys. I don't have anything against their message. I think it can be quite valuable. But it's the followers who take this, oftentimes self-improvement or individualism to this extreme where essentially they use it as a mallet to beat on others who they perceive as not doing enough. So hopefully if you are into self-improvement, emphasis on self, dieting, working out, eating better, whatever, improving your mental, emotional, physical, and financial health, those are all excellent objectives, don't get me wrong. But then you get the people who essentially use it as a measuring stick, and they may not even be pursuing those ideals themselves. And it's like, someone goes to the gym, works out. Yeah, but you're not a bodybuilder. You're not lifting enough. Well, maybe that person is healthy and fine doing what they're doing, but you're obsessed with trying to reach this kind of, stereotypical artificial standard, which is that good for them? Is it good for you? Or is it simply good for your feeling of superiority? Because if you're not a bodybuilder especially, and you're just obsessing with everyone having to be a bodybuilder, you're not using self-improvement in an effective way, if you ask me. This also will move on to a great real component, which is the people who advocate minimalism. Now, minimalism as a concept, is fantastic. Being frugal, not buying stuff that's going to break quickly or things that are just too expensive, conserving your funds, doing more with less. I support all of that stuff. However, the gurus you'll see and then some of the followers have this tendency, and I think in the case of the gurus, they are attempting to cover up maybe their own lack of success. You just tend to see it bleed through with the messaging in certain cases, where let's say you're making $25,000 a year and you have a very strict budget and you're fine. Okay. But what if you were making $50,000 a year? Would that make you a sellout? Would that make you a loser? Well, some of these gurus will try to portray it as though if you're not doing extreme early retirement, if you're not making $5,000 a year and living in an abandoned bus and living on canned food, foraging for fruits and berries, or something similar, that you're just a wage slave. Yeah, you're just living paycheck to paycheck. You've got credit card debt. Not necessarily. You can make six figures and be frugal. That's what I do. There's people who make $500,000 and they can be frugal. Simply earning more money does not mean that you are necessarily going to piss it all out the door. You can, but then there's people who don't make a lot of money and they're in a lot of credit card debt. So that whole caricature of other people is just convenient to propose this notion that everyone's got to do this particular mode of living, which is not necessary. Minimalism should be, in my opinion, yes, budget, keep costs low, but also increase your income so that you're not in a financially dire situation if you have a medical expense or something goes wrong. And maybe you can afford some things you'd like to have, but you couldn't earlier on because of your income. There's no shame in that. And if you really want to do the extreme early retirement, good for you, but say that as, this is good for me, it works. I'm not going to go around and just make the conclusion about other people where I don't know, or I'm just doing it because it's convenient for me. Bear in mind, too, that even, say I bought a house, right? I got it cheap. I got it for a low interest rate. We'll see if it ends up being a good thing. I'm planning to actually have some tenants in line to rent it. So it could be successful. It might not be. But even if you contrast that with van life, which is what a lot of people do, it's true that van life, you save a lot of money. I've done it. I wrote a book on it. But now with a pandemic, you've got those kind of single point of failure where, can't use libraries, can't use a lot of public parks, can't even park in certain parking lots anymore. Gyms are closed, so your ability to crap and wash are severely restricted. And so there are potential downsides. You can't just go around being like, yeah, this is superior because it saves me money, and then you see a very significant problem with that, which you can work around, obviously. But don't just have these, yeah, this is just perfect and everyone else must somehow have an issue with them because they're not living up to my idea. Assuming, of course, that you're even doing that. And that brings us to the next category in the manosphere, which would be the PUAs. A few years ago, I talked to you guys about how most of these dudes are probably frauds. They're not sincere. And now it's become in vogue that, yeah, the PUAs, you can't trust them. I suspect that's because the market for dating coaches collapsed, but could just be a theory. Well, you notice that the dudes who follow these PUAs, 2 questions. Number 1, do they apply PUA in their own life? Number 2, are they getting laid? I suspect for most of them, the answer would be a hell no. But they still like to create this whole idea that the PUA who in their mind is doing well with women is a reflection on them. And so, yeah, those incels, those black pillars, they've all given up. It's like, but you're not doing anything different fundamentally. You just feel better because you're associated with a so-called self-improvement person. And that's where I just find it to be kind of ridiculous. That's where I think self-improvement just becomes an excuse to hate other people rather than better yourself. And there's even a racial element to this. So there's the guys who go, yeah, white men are the top of the heap with dating, LOL. Yeah, there's some truth to that, but are you white? Yeah. Are you getting laid? Awkward silence. Just because Chad or whoever is popular with women and has pale skin does not mean that because you have pale skin you're popular with women and you're getting laid. But they'll use Chad as an excuse for why somehow that value trickles down upon them. And you've got the black simps who'll do the same. Black men are the most desirable to women. Some black men are. I worked and lived with a lot of black people for many years. Have some decent insight into their culture, but they'll tell you flat out, like I've had dudes tell me, a chadrone, like a good-looking mixed dude, can clean up regardless of where he is. But that's him. That's not everyone. And of course, chocolate has his day, to be fair to chocolate. But the point being, just because you're black does not mean that every black guy is desirable. People will try to live through the stereotype or the ideal and feel better about themselves. This is one of the reasons I believe that cuckoldry has become more popular on the internet.com and also in society, because a lot of men are just resigned to the fact that they're going to have to watch some dude they like, or they like, a girl they like, being screwed by another dude. It's almost as though they're just processed and programmed in that direction, which is kind of sad and degenerate, but maybe that just tells you the state of the dating market. I don't know. And finally, we should note the MGTOWs have this as an element too. It's like, MGTOW, as I understood it, was people making a personal decision going their own way, not a political party, not a attack any man who's not a MGTOW as a simp or a mangina, because there are going to be dudes out there who date and it doesn't mess with them. They don't get Me Too'd or whatnot. A lot of these dudes associate with MGTOW, they have this obsession. It's like trying to, you gotta go MGTOW, you're gonna be like this. Not necessarily. Just like not every dude who gets married, which marriage is a bad idea, but not every dude who gets married is gonna get divorce raped, divorce cucked, whatever. But it's convenient to have that clear argument, because then you don't have to account for anything that countervails it. So my point would be, whatever you associate with, whatever you believe, religion, political philosophy, self-improvement, use it because it betters your own interests or welfare and those around you. Don't use it because you just want to hate on other people, because it's in those simplistic models of construction for the world that a lot of value and detail gets left out, and you could completely miss something because you're too obsessed with trying to prove you're superior to someone who, in your mind, is not self-improving enough, is not doing the right thing, even though you may not be living it. You may not be applying it in your own life, but you just want to feel superior. And I don't think that's a good use of time and effort, especially for younger people.